But let's say you just recruited George Verdugo, you just got his IBA. What's that conversation look like on that first meeting?
Those first two things you mentioned are important, but for me, how I did it is my goal was always to get you in the field. So if I recruit you, Tim, let's say Tim, well, number one, I'd say let's sit down, let's put together a list of all the people that you care about that you want them to help them improve their life, either financially, make sure protect their family. So let's put together a list of those people. So get your phone out. Today it's a phone before before we'd have like a book, but get your phone out. Let's talk about who you know, who you care about, who you want to make sure that their life ends up really fantastic from a financial perspective. So let's put that list together first. So that would be the very first thing I would do. Without the list, you have nothing. If you don't get the list first and they bail on you, now you have nothing. So, but if you have a list, if I have Tim's list, and obviously I have 25 names, even if Tim doesn't do anything, I let Tim know, look, this list, I would say, I go over the list, Tim, this list could be worth thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or possibly millions of dollars. I don't know because I don't know these people. I haven't met them yet, but I know the list could be very, very valuable. Without the list, you have nothing. And so Tim, he doesn't know anything on anything, and he can't really do anything. But what we can do is we can put together a list, and then I can show him how to. What I do is I would show him how to set an appointment with his war market. So that's the first thing I do because I want to make sure he knows how to contact people. So let's say, uh, Tim, who do you know? Let's talk about that first. So let's say it's you know George Verdugo. Okay. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to call George. I know he's a friend of yours, and I want you to tell him that you're getting involved in a new business. So I would say how I would set up. I said, hey, listen, George, I'm getting involved in a new business. I'm really excited about it. In fact, I'm actually thinking about making a career change. That I always had him say that because it's important. I'm actually thinking about making a career change. But before I do that, George, what I'd like to do is I'd like for you to, that's Georgia. I like for you to take a look at what I'm doing and see if it resonates with you, if it makes sense to you, and what you feel about it before I ask you to do anything. So that's what I'd want to do. So what I want you to do is call Tim Stiles. All right. So, hey Tim, this is George Verdugo. Listen, I want to see if we can get together for a little bit. I'm getting involved in a new business and I'm really excited about it. In fact, I'm really thinking about possibly making a career change. That's how excited I am about it. But before I do that, I'd like to sit down with you. I'd like to show you what I'm doing and see if it makes sense to you and see if you would be open to sitting down with me and learning a little bit about it. And then if it's for you, great. And if it's not for you, don't worry about it. But I want you to know about it. And then that way, I want you to feel comfortable about referring me to people that you know, that you like, that you love, that you trust, all that sort of thing. And so that we can get started. So I want him to set appointments with people because if I could get Tim to set appointments in his warm mark with people that he likes and cares about, with my sales skills. This is why it's so important to get your sales skills up and really, really focus on you becoming a professional salesperson. Because once I get, if George or Tim likes George, I don't know how I have to start, but whoever, then and they're good friends, they're going to be open to sitting down, and then they're going to be excited about what we're doing. I'm going to get them really excited about how we help people, what a difference we make, what the potential is, all that sort of thing. I'm going to do that, and then we're going to get an appointment. We're going to sit down and I'm going to show him what we do. And most likely, if he's in the market, and I'm assuming he's in market, if he's in the market, that would be somebody who's married, has children, has a good job, has lived in the area 2 years or longer, has a decent warm market, people that know him, like him, trust him, that sort of thing. If I could get in front of people that he knows that like him and trust him and care about him, and they're in the right market, the right age group, they're working, they live in the area a certain period of time, all that sort of thing. I'm going to close, in my situation, I would close 80+% of the people I sat down with if they're in the market, at least that. So the reason I want to get him in the field, and I don't really care about him getting licensed right away, is I want to get him to understand how great our business and how it actually works. So he could see me do the presentation, see me, ask all the questions, see me overcome the areas of concern the client might have, see me do everything. I want him to see all that. And then I want to close, if if he has a good market, I'm closing 8 out of 10 for sure. No, I have no doubt about that. And I want to show him that the business works. And if he can see that the business works, then he's going to be much more likely to want to set up more appointments. So if we close, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sales, he's going to go, holy cow. And then I'm going to explain to him while we're doing this, what the compensation, I want you to be thinking about becoming a regional vice president. I want to show you that compensation and what that looks like. If you got into these appointments, you close 8 out of 10, and you made, say, $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 or more on each appointment, I'm going to show him that that's the potential. Because right now he has a job. I don't know what were you doing, Tim, before you got involved in primary?
Realtor.
He was a realtor, so I don't know what he was making, but if he sees that you have the potential on 10 appointments, you could close maybe $8,000 or make $8,000 in the future, not today. But this is the potential. That's why I want you to get excited. I want them to get excited about the potential in the future. And I want them to see that it's not difficult to do this. Because my closing ratio is really high. This is why it's so important that you become a professional salesperson, because my closing ratio is very high, 80+% if I was in the right market. And so I show them that there's a lot of money to be made. So you could imagine, and I'm going to recruit people too in his market. So if we go see 10, 15 people, I'm going to recruit 3 or 4, 5, 6 people. And I'm going to show them how you can build a business, because you're going to recruit people, you're going to start teaching people what to do, and you're going to see that, it's easy to make money in this thing. And it is. It's easy to make money in primary if you're good. If you suck, it's not. Okay. So you got to get good. That's why you got to focus on getting really, really good at overcoming the objections that come up and all that sort of thing, and get really good at presenting. But if you do get good at presenting and overcoming objections, all that, it's not difficult to make money. It really isn't. It's really pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And the best part of it is you're making a difference in these people's lives. You're helping them. You're helping them maybe formulate how to get out of debt. You're showing them how to put protection on their family and save the family in the case of, you pass away too soon. Show you how to how investing money makes a huge difference, how you can get financially independent by the investments you make, and get people excited about what we're doing. So for me, I didn't really care so much that they had I'm going to get an IBA too. That's going to happen. But I want them to see the business and how it works, and that it works. I always wanted people to get excited about this. Wow, this is amazing. We went on 10 appointments and we closed 8 transactions. That's phenomenal. I want them to see that. And if you get your new people to see success, and that there's money to be made, and that it's not that difficult, you're not coercing people, you're not forcing people to buy or being a jerk or anything like that, then they're going to be more excited about putting you in front of more people, and they're going to be excited about bringing people to your meetings so that you can see how the business works and all that sort of thing. You're going to have a lot of success in that area. And so I really made that most important to me is to get Tim to see the business works and that's great, and that people accept it and they're not fighting it, and they won't, they're excited about the potential with what we can do for them. I want them to understand that and see that and start believing that this is a really great opportunity for not only for you to get involved in the business, but it's a really opportunity for the client to get the right amount of insurance, to start having a debt reduction program, to start investing and saving money in vehicles that could help them retire sooner, that sort of thing. I want them to really understand that. And if you get people to see that and they have a good warm market, you're going to do great. I mean, you're going to close tons of, I closed tons of business over the years doing that. So, and I pretty much, if I wanted to recruit somebody, I recruited them, because I could get them to see how great it was, but I could also get them to see that they're helping people in the process, and it's making a difference for the families we go. So we're not just there to make a sale to make money. We're there to really help these people And if we do that, then, you know, the new people are gonna see that, and they're gonna be, they're gonna wanna keep going, and they're gonna wanna bring people to the meetings and all that sort of things. So getting people excited about what we do was the number one thing I focused on. And I got them to set appointments, and I closed a bunch of business, and I just showed them it works. Because if the new recruit doesn't believe it works, they're not gonna make any effort. But if they see that it works, they're gonna make an effort to come to the meetings, to set more appointments, to talk to everybody. They're gonna see that, and they're gonna see that we're doing good work, we're doing good things for people, we're making a difference in people's lives. So that's what I wanted them to see. And then I'll get the IBA, I'll get them in school and all that, but the number one thing is to get them excited about the business and that it works, and they could see that it works, and they can believe in it. And then they're gonna wanna go to school, they're gonna wanna fill out their IBA and all that sort of stuff. They're gonna want to do that because they're gonna see that, I could see that there's some potential down the road. If I get good at this thing, I could do very, very well, and I could help people in the process. That's what I wanted people to see. And so it was easy for me.
So getting their list, getting outfield, making money, instead of telling them what it's going to look like, you just show them. So show them how to make money.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
okay.
Just show 'em how it
Uh,
works.
yeah. Okay. We're going to change the discussion now. You were great at duplicating. Well, how many RVPs do you have in your hierarchy?
I don't know, 500.
Okay.
I don't know, a lot, but I have no
A
idea. I don't
lot.
know, a lot, a lot of.
Well,
I have, put
obviously,
it this way, I have 16,000 plus agents in my,
okay. So
I,
you're great at duplicating yourself, which means you had to be great at teaching others how to teach others. George, what's your first question right after that, Sean? George.
Morning, Hector. How are you?
good morning, great, George.
Good. I was talking to Tim yesterday, and the question constantly comes up. I think one of the reasons that people get burned out on recruiting is that they're not duplicating themselves. They're not creating independent individuals, and sometimes it's just easier to go out and do it on your own. The truth be told, it's not.
No.
And there is a process that you need to go through. It's got to become part of your system. So my first question is, what were some of the keys to you developing independent field trainers? Tim and I talked about Tom Hopkins,
Mhm.
and I just told him, I saw the results you were getting, and you said, go get Tom Hopkins, How to Master the Art of Selling Anything,
Mhm.
and turn your car into a classroom. And for years, that's all I listened to.
Mhm.
But what are some of the keys, some of the tools, and maybe what was your common practice when you were doing a training meeting? Because a lot of times people think motivation is training. Motivation is not training. It's like brushing your teeth. You got to do it all the time.
Yeah.
Training is where you teach people a skill. So what was the process that you used to duplicate yourself?
Well, the number one thing is I taught people how to, something on my glasses. Sorry. I taught people how to number one, how to present, because if they can't present correctly, they can't close. So that's the number one thing I would teach people: how to do a winning presentation, a closing oriented presentation that moves people from where they are to getting involved as a client first, hopefully as an agent a second. But that's one of the things I did, as I made sure that they understand exactly how to do that. And I role played with people. One of the things I did with teaching, when I would teach in my op meeting, I'm not my training meetings, I had always had like a kitchen table at the front on the stage, 4 chairs, and then I would show people exactly how to do a presentation, exactly how to overcome all the most common objections, how to close, how to close the securities, how to close them on the business. I show them. So you got to show people exactly how to do everything, because they're not going to figure it out on their own. So in my meetings, what I did is I was always focused on teaching exactly what I did when I was with a client, when I was at the kitchen table. I wanted people to know exactly how I did it. So I would role play it. I would show them, and while I was doing that, I would explain what I'm doing. I'd say, here, remember they asked this question and I answered this way. I wanted to make sure they understood exactly what I was doing, because I was a closer, and I know, George, you're a closer. So, so and my thought was always, if I could get anybody I can get to model and mimic what I do, exactly how I do it, then they're going to have success, they're going to make money, and they're going to stay. If you can't teach people how to close and how to make money, they're not staying. The primary reason you lose people is because they don't make any money. No one that's making money is going to leave. Now, people leave anyway sometimes, but the primary thing is, I got, like George. George makes, I don't know what George makes, $600,000-700,000 a year. George makes too much money to go anywhere. He's kind of stuck here, right? So my goal was always to get people making money and learning how to close transactions and how to close people on joining the business. If you could teach them how to do that, and then they got to prospect though, they got to do the work to meet with people or bring people to meetings. If you could do that, people stay. That's how you build a big base shop. You can't build a big base shop unless people are staying. If you're recruiting them and they're leaving a month later, there's no building going on. It's a house built on sand, right? So you got to make sure that people can do what you do. So my thought was always, if I can have a motivated person and I can train them and I can get them to do what I do, they're going to be successful. They're going to win and they're going to stay. They're going to make money. The number one thing that causes people to leave is they don't make money. You've got to teach people how to make money. And if you do that, they'll stay. And if you don't, they won't. That's pretty much that simple. As you look at your people that are making money, they're excited, they're happy, they're pumped up about what's going on. And if they're not making money, they're like sad sacks, all right? They're complaining and not happy. So you can teach them how to do each of those things. And it takes a lot of time. You got to do it. You got to repeat yourself incessantly. It's one of the things that you have to do. I mean, George's been around me a long time. I'm saying the same things I told to George. How long you been here? 30, 20,
25 years. Yeah.
yeah, 25 years. I haven't changed
35 years.
anything. I'm still doing exactly what I did 25 years ago with a new person because that works. And so I want to make sure my goal is always to turn every motivated person, not every person, because not everyone's motivated, every motivated person into a professional salesperson. That's
So
what
can I ask a question, Hector?
Mhm.
Based on that thought there, I sat in on a meeting on just recent, a group of, 30 somethings in the company, probably been doing the business less than 10 years. And there's a young guy that said, I listened to Hector Lemarque's Overcoming Objections, and I heard about Tom Hopkins. And he says, it took Primerica from a thing for me to an actual business where I knew I could duplicate. This kid's making 300-400 grand a year now. So how important in your process was not only you using Tom Hopkins to develop your skills, but teaching others? And then the second thing, and I really thought about this yesterday when I was talking to Tim, we can only train people a couple hours a week. Saturday meeting is not enough to really train them,
No.
but you got us to turn our cars into classrooms. So
Right.
we were training 20, 30 hours a week if we were driving around town.
Yeah.
How important is Tom Hopkins to your process, and why?
I mean, that how to master the art of selling anything audio. I mean, and I've told you this 100 times. I listened to that audio program, uh, like almost 2 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 straight years in my car every day. I stopped listening to the radio. I didn't do any of that stuff. Didn't listen to podcasts. I only listened to that. For me, I was very shy, introverted. So getting my skill set up so that I got so good at it that my closing ratio was very, very high. If I was in front of somebody that was qualified, I pretty much closed 80% of people that I sat down with. But it was because I studied that over and over and over, and I got so that everything was just reflexive. I didn't have to like think, oh, they said this, or what do I say next? I just knew what to do. And it always also what happened because I was so good at it, had it down so good. I was very relaxed when I was talking to people. I didn't stress out. I was very calm. I was very, straightforward, and it was very easy for me. And the business, when I started doing that, and the business was easy for me, but when I started teaching it, the business got really fun and exciting. I mean, when you start developing people, like you have a George Verdugo in your team, right? And he's starting to make, 100 or 200 or 300 or $500,000 a year or more. That's exciting. I mean, it's exciting for George. It's exciting for me. And you have somebody that can duplicate themselves and build something, build a business, that takes care of you no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. And so like, because I have so many people in my business that are very, very good. They're pros and they make money. And I don't have to worry about them leaving if they're making money. I mean, that's the number one thing you have to think about. People only leave because they don't make money. I'm gonna keep saying that over and over. So if you learn how to close, you can make money. And so if you don't teach people how to close, they can't make money. And so it's really critical that you do that. That's what I focused on. I got people, turned them into professional salespeople. And I know in Primerica, nobody talks about this. That makes no sense to me that nobody talks about this because this is like probably the most important thing you should be talking about. And hardly anybody mentions that. You want to become a pro because once I have a saying, pros get paid, amateurs get exercise. You want to get paid, you got to become a pro. I mean, that's not even just Primerica, it's anything you do. Any business venture you involve yourself in. If you're not a professional, you're not going to get paid, not getting paid much, or not going to pay what you should be getting paid. So you've got to teach people how to present and close and overcome objections. That's a key to building something and making money. Y'all want to make money, don't you? I mean, I don't know what you guys,
Yeah.
I wanted to make money. So I knew that if I didn't close, I wasn't going to make any money. If I didn't teach people to close, they weren't going to make money, and then I wasn't going to make money. So that's the thing that you have to do and get comfortable with it. I was totally comfortable with it. I
Heck,
never pressured people. I asked questions and I got people to see why this was good for them. And I didn't have to pressure them. I never did pressure anybody. I mean, that's what a pro does.
Hector, I got a question for you. Appreciate you being on here today. Um, when I first started out, I think it's the same with everyone. Fear, lots of times, is a stronger emotion than the desire for success.
Yes.
And the biggest fear that I had starting out is I went from hoping that this works to knowing that it works only when I saw it in the field. I go, holy cow, they actually do own that whole life stuff that they're talking about. Oh
Mhm.
my God. And boy, that was easy. But I went from hoping to knowing, but you have the A list and the B list. I'm like, man, I don't want to take them to my best people until I see that this guy's going to be cool. So I know you've covered this before, but we can't talk about it too much for duplication. If I'm brand new, how do you talk to me? And we'll just do a role play here, but how would you talk to me to let me know to not take you to my B list, to take you to my best people, my most successful people, of whom I have the most credibility with? What would you say to me, knowing that I have that fear? Because I'm not going to tell you, Hector, I'm going to take you to some of my scrubs before I take you to my really good folks. Okay. So, what would you say to me?
Well, everybody feels that pretty much. Everybody you're going to field train or you're going to work with, they're going to be nervous about, especially if they don't know you that well. Because if somebody I just met recently and I'm starting to work with them, they don't know me. They don't know if I'm a jerk, if I'm going to go there, I'm going to embarrass them, and that's their big fear. People's number one fear is that you're going to go to their friends' homes and you're going to be a hardcore, you're going to pressure them, and you're going to alienate their friend. Their friend's going to call them and say, hey, Sean, you idiot, what'd you bring this guy by? Guy was a jackass. They don't
Right.
they're afraid of that. People,
So what would you say to me?
so
Actually,
I would
what would
say,
you actually say? Yeah.
Sean, look, number one, I'm never going to embarrass you. When we go see your friends, they're going to love what we do. You're going to see right away that that's going to happen. I'm going to make sure they understand it. I'm not going to pressure them. I'm only going to do what's in their best interest, and you'll see that when you're with me. I'm going to do a great job with that. We're going to help these people. We're going to help them get more protection for their family. We're going to help them start saving and investing for their future so they can get, debt free and get financially free. That's the whole purpose of our visits that we're going to have. So I don't want you to be nervous about taking me to see your absolute best friends because I promise you, I'm never going to embarrass you. Because if I embarrass you, you know what's going to happen? You're never going to take me to see another person. And what does that do for
Right.
me? I'm dead in the water if you don't want to go see people. So I want you to be absolutely certain that I'm going to not do anything to embarrass you in any way. It's going to end up being a fantastic meeting, and they're gonna love us. They're gonna really like us and what we do. I promise you that. And so just put your list of the people that you have the most credibility with, the people that you care about, the people you want to be for their lives through. And then we're going to go and we're going to help them to do that. We're going to help them to get debt free. We're going to help them to protect their family properly. We're going to help them start saving, investing money so they can get financially independent and, get rid of their job at some point. All those things is the objective. And you're going to see that right away. And I want you to feel very, very comfortable to take me to see your very best friends and people you care about those. Because if we go see people that he really, that he loves and they care about him, our probability of closing the transaction goes up exponentially. I mean,
Sure.
that's why you want to go see those people. But you got to lay their fear that you're going to do anything that's going to, you know, cause a rift between them and their friend. That can't happen, because if I do that, I don't have a future in Primerica. So we're gonna do a great job for everybody. And I never pressured anybody. I would never pressure anybody to buy or join. I just never did that. And they'll see right away that my demeanor, I'm not, a used car salesman. My goal is to help people improve their lives. Because see, the other thing with your clients, I want them to feel really comfortable giving us referrals. And if we pressure them or we do anything to alienate them, they're not going to give us referrals. They're not going to help us. So I'm not here for the short term. I'm here for the long term. And you have to do things right in order to be here for the long term. So you don't need to worry about taking me to see anybody. I promise you, they're gonna be excited. They're gonna go away. In fact, I'm sure that they're gonna thank you for bringing me to see them.
That's
Hey,
fantastic. And go ahead, Tim.
yeah, I was going to say, George, we were talking about yesterday too how Hector was training you even in the evening time. Sometimes you come home and you didn't close, and he would have a conversation with you. What was that conversation? Was he trying to teach you what, close, or how did he do that?
Well, no, what I would do is every night I'd get home and, this is the first few years I'd call Hector just to check in. Here's what I did, here's what went well, here's what didn't. And whenever it didn't go well, he never let me off the hook. Like if I left the house and they were spending $300 a month on whole life and they didn't do business with me, and I'd say, oh, they were just idiots. And he said, well, let me ask you some questions. Did you say this? Did you say that? Did you explain this to him? Did you, when you asked this question, how did he respond? And when I would say, oh, wow, I didn't ask that question, or no, I didn't say that, I'd get off the phone. And instead of feeling like the client was a loser, I felt like I got to go work on myself. Because if I would have said that, I would have done the business. And then, the spiral effect would have been great. So what he would do is coach me in real time, where he'd go over whatever was necessary. And
You
that
role
was
play it.
that was the observation I made with Tim. I remember, and you could only do this in the early stages, but you would actually bring guys into your office and have them give you their presentation so you could coach them, because you couldn't go in the field with everybody.
No.
And I think that's a boring part of the business, but it's so vital because you're helping people develop skills that make them productive and fruitful. And if you really want to know how to develop a relationship with people, teach them how to make money. So that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of how he did. And I don't know how many guys you did that with,
A
but I
lot.
know you did it with me.
Yeah, I did it. I did it with every motivated person. I didn't do it with everybody because some people, they're not motivated. I mean, I did not work with people who were not motivated, who are unmotivated. I only worked with motivated. And this teaching people directly how to do things, if they're a motivated individual and they learn it and they do it, they're going to be successful. I mean, I've developed a lot of successful people over the year. Not everybody, because not everybody's coachable. Not everybody is willing to do the work. But if they are, if I can see that they're a motivated kind of individual, I would spend as much time as I possibly could with them, and I'd coach them and keep coaching them. I mean, I don't know how many phone calls we had over the years, but a lot. About different things, and I would just hear what he did. I would always ask, okay, so what did they say? And then I say, what did you say? And then he'd tell me. I said, okay. And then right away, I could see why he didn't close or why it didn't work. I said, okay, next time, this is what I want you to say. And then I would, coach him on exactly what to say the next time when that happened. And so you keep doing this every week, every year, every month over time. they get it, and then they don't, you don't need to reteach them all this information and stuff. So, but you've got to do it in the beginning, and you've got to do it with the motivated people. That's why, for me, I always really had fun with the business, and I never got burnt out on it. I've been doing this, this is for my 40th year in Primerica. I've been doing this. I'm not burnt out on it at all. I still excited about the business because I I only work with motivated people. That's all. And if you're not motivated, I'm nice to you. Hi, John. Hi, Mary. How you guys doing? But not spend any time with them. I only spent time with people who I could see were actually motivated to do the business, because those are the people that are going to become RVPs. Those are the people that can help you really grow your business. So, um,
Hector, somebody asked a question in the chat. What what determines somebody that is motivated and coachable in your eyes?
one, they show up to all the meetings. If people don't show up to all the meetings, there's not a lot of hope for them long range. So that's one of the first things. Are they coming to all the meetings? And then I recommend them to listen to different audios and read different books. And I would ask them, so did you read the book yet? Did you listen to that audio? How many times have you listened to it? I'd want to see what they were doing. I want to make sure they're doing all the right things they're listening to. Like that overcoming objections audio that I did. If I would tell people, if you, and it's still relevant today, even though I did that years and years ago, I would say, look, how many times have you listened to that? What you need to do is you need to listen to it about 100 times, and then you got to get to the point where it's so reflexive that you don't even have to think about what you're doing. It just comes out like that. So that would get people to do it. Everybody that you know that did the Hopkins How to Master Anything, or listen to that Overcoming Objections audio that I did, they all end up making money and then they
Yeah.
stay. That's how I got 16,000 code numbers. You have to have people stay to grow that number that high, right? So it's just really important to teach them exactly what to do and how to do it. I and I think about it. I thought about it, everybody kind of like they were a child, not the child, but they were my kid. And my goal was to get everybody to be as competent as they possibly could, so they could make money and stay. And if you were training somebody you love, like your child, would you just do it willy nilly, or would you be really serious and methodical about teaching people? Because that's the difference. One thing is, I never got bored doing it. Like, even the stuff I'm talking to you about right now, I've said all this stuff a million times,
Right.
over and over and over. I've never stopped doing it. I'm not. If I have a motivated person, I can repeat myself 1,000 times. I don't care, because that person that's motivated is going to be an RVP at some point if they keep allowing, listening to what I say and follow my teaching and my example and that sort of thing. So I have no problem being repetitive.
Hector, may I just kind of follow up to that one word that you said in our last little role play here? Once you're good, man, the business is easy and making money, but everybody gets to the point where they run out of people to go see because they're not asking for referrals. And what they don't understand is a referral is a close. To build that level of trust and do that great of a job, for somebody goes, you got to go see all of my family, man. But how important are referrals and how easy are they to close?
Well, if you're good, they're very, very easy to close. And number one thing about getting referrals, you have to ask for them.
Right. I
Yeah.
think half the people in Primerica don't.
If they don't do that.
They don't.
And look, and if you don't ask, the answer's always no. But if you ask, you have the potential to get a yes, right? So you got to get comfortable asking for what you want, which is referrals, or for them to come to the next meeting, or for them to read a book, or whatever. You got to ask people. You got to become a professional. I was just in Hawaii for 12 days with my son and his two boys and his wife, and those kids, one's 10, one's 14. They ask. It was hysterical. I was watching them do this we have dinner or lunch and breakfast or whatever. We were doing something. They were always asking for something. They never stopped asking. and they're like, they don't even realize what they're doing. They're professional salespeople. They are. And so you got to ask yourself, do you ask? Are you asking for what you want? Because if you don't ask for what you want, the answer is always no. You got to get in the habit of asking, and don't worry about getting rejected. Who cares? I
Right.
never worry about being rejected. I just ask, and if they say no, well, then they say no. Well, that's go on to the next person. There's so many people. I'm driving yesterday, the day before yesterday, come back from the airport, take an Uber home. And the traffic is freaking insane. There's so many people that you just maybe you stop looking or you stop asking or whatever. But there's no shortage of people to potentially, make clients or make a recruit. They're there. If you just open up your eyes and you start asking.
Right.
Imagine if you had no fear whatsoever. How much better would you be? You'd be unstoppable. And
Right.
that's what the greats are. The greats have, I had a lot of fear early, but I got my skill set up so high that I wasn't afraid anymore, and I knew I could close just about anybody, so I had no problem asking, you know. And you got to get to that point. You got to get your people to that point where they have no fear and they're asking. Who's a couple people that I recruited. George would be one of them, but Rick Susie had no fear. He would ask until the cows came home. Same thing with Chris Howard. So Chris I did a meeting for him, and I was tired and I was hungry. Let's go get something to eat. He goes, I want you to meet somebody. I said, yeah, no, not right now. Let's do it later. Let's go eat. I'm starving. I've been up there teaching for an hour, 3 or 4 hours, whatever. And I said, no, let's do it later. And you know what he does? He takes me over to their place. He didn't listen to me. He didn't.
I
He
can
just
see
did
that.
it. He just did it. And that's kind of what you have to be like.
Hector, I think it's important for people to realize, when you said I was fearless, that's not true. I was scared to death, and
Mm,
I hated rejection. I hated that part of the business.
me
It's
too.
just your ego, your self-esteem, whatever it is. But what I interpreted is if I became good or great at the business, if I learned how to close, if I learned how to do what Tom Hopkins was teaching us to do,
Mm,
that I would not eliminate all the rejection, but for the most part, it would dissipate because people
yeah,
couldn't get away with the excuses. I think that's the part that people miss about developing that skill because
yeah, yeah.
I didn't come into it with the skills, nor did you. But do you think you could have built the organization that you built if you wouldn't have had a tool like Tom Hopkins to teach people how to become professional salespeople?
Well, that definitely was the major difference. I mean, first I became a professional, so then it was easy for me because you can't teach what you don't know.
Right.
So you have to become a pro yourself so that you can teach your motivated people in your base shop and your team. But Uh, I used to be afraid to talk to people. I mean, you've heard me say this before, this is the absolute truth. I'd be in the mall, walking down the mall, and I would see somebody, maybe one of you guys, you're a friend, I knew you, and I'd walk into a store to avoid before you saw me so I didn't have to talk to you. That was me. I swear to God, that's how I was. And so this is a long time ago, obviously, but then when I learned how to sell, and how to close, everything got fun and easy. It's really, it's kind of just a little bit of a challenge. You see somebody give you a couple objections. It was like, for me, it was like, oh, come on, you can do better than that, you know? So I got to
Okay.
that point and I got comfortable with it. And, like my wife, when I'd be on the phone talking to people, she goes, I can't believe you talk to people like that. Well, what do you mean? I says, you just tell them what it means. You're so direct. I said, yeah, that's right. That's what you have to be if you want to be successful. You got to be direct. You can't beat around the bush. You got to ask for what you want. It's like if you go into a restaurant and your waiter comes up and asks, what would you like? And you go, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You're gonna decide on what you want. How am I gonna give you what you want if you don't ask me what you want? You know, and that's how people are. They're so afraid. They're afraid of being rejected because almost everybody's afraid of being rejected. But if you get your skill set up, you hardly ever get rejected. I hardly ever got rejected because, I just was good. You want to make a lot of money, get really good at sales. Get really good. Then it gets fun. Then it's like a game. Instead of something like, oh my God, they don't like me, they rejected me. Who gives a shit? I don't care. You know, I want to help you, want to be successful, and I would go after it until I did.
So Hector, do you have a place I know you have a place at Cabo, and you have another place where?
Vegas,
Vegas?
Las Vegas, and I have a place in Newport Beach, California.
Wow. Why the lifestyle? So
Here, I will show you. Well, so I'm at my kitchen table. I'll show you where I'm sitting here. So, I'm in Newport Beach right now.
okay.
I'll be here till November. But so this is my view. See the ocean in the distance there. But it's
Wow.
so awesome here. It's so beautiful. And it's something all of you can obtain. Hey, this is my house. Okay. A nice kitchen.
Beautiful.
Got it.
This is one of your houses.
Outdoor thing with the fireplace and the TV and yeah, this is a really, really nice house. Don't get me wrong, but my house in Cabo's nicer.
Wow. We appreciate it so much, Hector. And looking forward to seeing you in person this, another week here. We'll be down to see you all, John, George, everybody.
Great. We have 10 millionaires speaking, so they're going to be talking about how they did what they did, and you're going to get tons of great information, and it's going to be a great meeting.
Looking forward to it. See you in a few days.
Looking forward to it.
It's
So
going to be
go out
hot,
there.
so dress cool. It's hot there.
Yeah, be a little warm.
All right, you guys.
See you later, buddy.
We'll see you guys next.
All right, see you
George.
guys.
Great
Check
job,
it out.
Tim. See you, man.
Thanks.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.